Start. We're on.
We're waiting for the headmaster of St. Augustine Academy in Ventura to log on.
He's here. Hello.
Sorry, the second headmaster. The co-headmaster. Where's Tim?
Tim is out on recess duty, but he'll be here shortly.
Got it. Oh, I thought that was him in the room. I was teasing him.
No, that was Andrew Seeley, but he can't join us today because he has to teach.
Yeah. Teaching moral theology?
That's right.
We'll give it about 2 more minutes.
Close that door. Hello.
Who's this calling from a 269 area code?
Oh, that's Becky Wright. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Becky, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Great. Glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here. I don't know that I'll be here the whole time, but I got another meeting at 4:30, but I wanted to chime in.
Good. Glad we've got you for a bit. And who's on a 301 number? That's not Danny Flynn, is it?
Yes, that's me, Chris.
Great. How you doing, Danny?
Good. How are you?
Great. Welcome. And Monique Davis, looks like you're out there on mute, so we won't be able to hear you, but welcome.
I'll unmute myself. I'm here.
There you are. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Welcome. Glad you're here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
And who do we have from Holy Mary Seat of Wisdom? Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Jonathan Bolus and Kieran Driver.
Great. Welcome. Where are you guys located? Remind me.
We're in the Central Valley of California, so here is Turlock.
Excellent.
Right in the middle.
Excellent. Welcome. You're welcome, everyone. Yeah. Just trying to. Okay, so if everyone wants to pause their microphone, feel free to unpause and chime in at any time, but if we all keep it paused unless we're speaking, the audio usually works a lot better. And you can simply do that by hovering on your little square and pressing mute. And I'll do it for folks who haven't yet, especially those of you on the phone. I think it's a little tougher, so I will try to unmute you if need be. But
Oops. Sorry, Chris, I'm in the car. So.
No problem. I'll mute you, Becky, I think.
Okay.
Looks like I can't. It's all right.
Do I need?
I don't know how.
I promise not to talk.
On the phone. There we go. I've got you. Okay. Great. Well, let's start like we start all things in prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of thy faithful, and enkindle in them the fire of thy love. Send forth thy Spirit, and they shall be created, and thou shalt renew the face of the earth. Let us pray. O God, who by the light of the Holy Spirit instructed the hearts of thy faithful, grant us in the same Spirit to savor what is right, and ever to rejoice in his consolation. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our second quarterly member school town hall meetings, the first of which we held in two groups, one for new and transitioning schools and the other for more veteran schools. But this quarter, we thought we'd have everyone together. So I hope you all had a very happy Easter. Welcome back. and we're very happy to have you here with us. I know we've got some people with us today that we haven't had in the past, and I know that some will be enjoying this via recording who can't be with us today. So for those that we don't know, we just want to do a couple quick introductions from the ICLE staff that's here today. First of all, my name is Chris Weir. I'm the Vice President of the Institute. I've been with the Institute now as Vice President for a little bit over a year, and I handle a lot of our operations and marketing and advancement work, and was in Catholic education for about 15 years before that, largely at the high school level, and until I dove down the rabbit hole of Catholic liberal education and found the Institute and got hooked. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the academic retreat a little bit later today. But that's me. Maybe I could turn things over to our president first, Mike Van Hecke.
Hi, I'm Michael Van Hecke, president. Founded the Institute 20 years ago to do exactly what we're doing today. And thanks to Dr. Andrew Seeley, who's not with us here, and Chris and Beth, we are all here. And that's just God's great blessing on us all. Thank you.
And Beth Sullivan, our executive director.
Hello, everyone. I have been with the Institute since about 2010. Prior to that, I was teaching at a startup Catholic classical liberal arts school in upstate New York. I really got started in this because of my own children, because of what I saw, the difference in my own children, and really wanted to be able to synthesize this and bring it to other educators like you. So it's a great blessing to be able to work with this team and to try to support all the amazing work that you're doing out there.
Great.
And just a disclosure, if you see me on video drinking out of a red cup, I know it's lunch on the West Coast, but this is actually water.
Thanks to clarify. That does look like a party cup. Do the rest of you want to do quick introductions? I think we have enough here that it wouldn't be
Yeah, let's do that.
Too much. So who would like to start? Janice, you're next on the video list as I see it. You want to hop in here?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Janice Martinez. I'm the principal of Holy Child Catholic School in the East Mountains of New Mexico, a K-8 classical Catholic school. We're 11 years old, and it was started as a Catholic classical school. Happy to be here.
Great. Becky, how about you? You're next on my list. See if I can unmute you.
I'm Becky. Oh, I'm unmuted. I'm Becky Wright. I'm the principal at St. Monica Catholic School in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and we've been working to transition toward a Catholic liberal education since the start of the school year. We had permission this year to teach 6 lessons in our grades K through 3, and next year we are going to be able to expand that to K through 6 again with 6 lessons.
Great. Great to have you, Becky. And it looks like I'm showing a 477 area code that I don't believe was on when we started. Who's that?
Hey, Chris, this is Tim Moore.
Oh, hey, Tim. We got
from St. Augustine Academy here. So I'm sorry, I'm a little late to the party. I just jumped on.
Not a problem.
So I'm the, are we supposed to introduce ourselves? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm the assistant headmaster here at St. Augustine Academy. I'm actually here with Mike Van Hecke. So just decided to jump on and see what's going on.
Great. Thanks, Tim. And then our friends at Holy Mary Seat of Wisdom.
Well, there's 2 of us here. So I'm Jonathan Bolus, and this is Kieran Driver. And we actually both work at a Catholic high school, a diocesan Catholic high school right now. I do the operations and finances, and he's the dean of students and a theology teacher. But we're in the process of starting Holy Mary Seat of Wisdom Classical Academy to open next year, and it's going to start up with younger grades, with probably around preschool, kindergarten, and first and second, and then slowly phase up to a full primary school, God willing. So, but right now, you know, both in a diocesan school, but the academy will not be a diocesan school once we start up.
Got it.
Where are you located?
Turlock, California.
Turlock, great.
Yep.
Great. Thanks for being here. And how about there's a 661 area code out there? Who's that?
That's me.
Oh, was that you? I'm sorry. I'm viewing that.
That was Tim.
Got it. Okay. Anthony down at St. Joseph Academy.
Hi, yes, I'm Anthony Bees, the headmaster at St. Joseph Academy here in San Marcos, California, which is the North County of San Diego. And we are getting close to our 25th anniversary. We're independent Catholic Classical Academy. We are now TK 4-year-olds through 12th grade. I think that's about it.
Great. Glad you're here. And Monique.
Let me unmute and see if a video will work so I can wave to you. I don't think it's going to work. Oh, wait. Here we go.
There you are.
Yay. Hi. So I'm Monique Davis. I'm with Ave Maria Academy, which started around my dining room table, April of 2015. We are joyfully going into our 4th year of operations, and God gave us an amazing miracle last night I have to share. We sent out a letter as the board stating some pretty dire financial circumstances, and between time, talent, and treasure, our families rallied, and we are grateful to be opening back in the fall. Well, we will be back. Of course, we have a lot of work to do, so Holy Mary, please be assured of our earnest prayers for you. It is a tough road, but it is so worth it. So worth it. I make no money and I get 20% raises every year, and it's just wonderful. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks for being here, Monique.
Appreciate it.
And let's see. Who haven't we heard from? Danny?
I'm Danny Flynn. I'm the principal at St. Jerome Academy in Hydesville, Maryland. We're a pre-K through 8 school, and we celebrate 75 years as a school this year and 9 years as a classical school.
Great. Thanks for being here, Danny. And is that everyone? Or Janice, did we hear from you? I talked to you beforehand. We did. Okay, great.
Yes.
I think that's everyone. Okay. So we thought we would start, being that tomorrow is May and summer is right around the corner, and you all have fantastic faculties that you want to nourish with rich professional development. We thought we would highlight our summer programs and just give you some insight as to what might be unique this year or different, or for those of you that are new to the Institute, what our 3 main summer programs consist of. So there on the screen, you can see what they are and when they're happening. Those are the 3 programs that for a number of summers now have been our 3 mainstays. We've got the Spirit and Craft of Teaching in the Catholic Liberal Arts tradition with Beth, which Beth is going to talk about a little more. You see the dates there, and that's at Catholic University of America in Washington. That'll be the first year that program is there. Our Academic Retreat for Teachers this year is happening around the same time in June. But out at Thomas Aquinas College on the opposite coast, out here in California. Beautiful setting for that, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And then Mike will review some of the things that you can look forward to from our national conference, which has been renamed from the National Catholic Classical Schools Conference to the ICLE National Conference. And we can talk about why we made that change as well, but that's at the end of July. We'll be back at Catholic University for that one as well. So, Beth, why don't you kick us off with some insight into what Spirit and Craft will look like this year? Uh-oh. Did we lose Beth? Oh, you're just muted.
Sorry.
There you go. Oh, and then
There you go.
go.
Okay, sorry about that. This is our most step-by-step teacher training program that we have. It begins on a Monday late afternoon, ends mid-afternoon on Thursday. It's aimed at a smaller group, far smaller, about a 10th the size of our national conference. We'll probably wind up with between 20 and 30 teachers, with 3 leaders. You see in the picture there, Sister Marianne Zuberbuehler, who's with the Nashville Dominican Sisters, myself, and Rosemary Vanderweel, who's the principal of Our Lady of Lourdes in Denver, which you can read about in our case studies if you don't know about it already. So this is very step-by-step, as I said, curriculum and pedagogy in terms of teacher training with a special emphasis on pedagogy. So we're going to practice in front of you. We're going to learn some tools and techniques, and we're really going to practice them in front of each other always tying theory and practice together. So by the end of this, you come out with at least a roadmap of what you want to do, either as a school leader, training your teachers, or teachers are also welcome to come to this as well. If you want to send sort of key faculty members to this, this is sort of everything we've laid out so far in a very practical way. And I can answer questions about it afterwards. So it's kind of a retreat-like atmosphere. We spend time in the evening together. We go to mass together. It's a really wonderful experience. We do some seminars together so that it's a very collegial environment where you can really ask all kinds of questions outside the curriculum as well.
Great. Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
Our second program that will be featured again this summer is our Academic Retreat for Teachers, which is the way that most of us who are on the Institute team, aside from the founders, actually came to know and love the Institute. And I was one of those back in the summer of 2014. It just so happened for me that the national conference conflicted with a previous engagement. So the only thing I could attend was the Academic Retreat for Teachers. So I wanted to do something. And I'm really glad I did. I always struggle with, we deal with so many schools that, transitioning schools that say, okay, what's the best process to put my faculty through and to, which programs to use and when and in what order. And we never really know exactly where to recommend the Academic Retreat for Teachers. For some people, it's a perfect place to start. For others, it's a great place to end up. For me, it was a great place to start because having been in conventional, modern secular education for so long, or that approach to education, even though I was in Catholic schools, I think getting the opportunity to taste and see first and say, wow, this is different. I've never learned like this. Now what's behind it? And then to dive into kind of the theory and practice. That worked really well for me. And I think others on our team would say the same thing. So a lot of small group discussions led by master teachers. So the participants of the Academic Retreat for Teachers are exactly that. They're participants, they're students for the 4 days of the program. It does not get into theory. It does not get into practice. You're not going to be on stage doing anything yourself. You're just simply going to be in the role of student. And it truly is a retreat-like atmosphere. Really beautiful. Between sharing liturgies together and in these deep, rich conversations. You can see the sample authors. It's quite an array of giants that you get to dive into and discuss. The other thing that took me by surprise, being that this is the Institute for Catholic Liberal Education, and emphasis on the liberal arts, and I was thinking that was mainly going to be humanities, and but reading Euclid and learning how to do proofs and geometry. For a lot of us that got there looked at that and went, I don't think I'm going to like that part. It always ends up being everybody's favorite part. So because you usually haven't done those kinds of things in a truly classical liberal arts environment before, and when you do, you realize it's a radically different experience. So the retreat is being led by our own Dr. Andrew Seeley, who's our Director of Advanced Formation, also a tutor at Thomas Aquinas College. You can see a picture of the campus if you're not familiar with Thomas Aquinas College, both for its gorgeous campus and setting or for its unique curriculum. Definitely recommend looking into it, but it is a perfect setting for an opportunity like this. We hosted a custom program last summer for a school up in Northern California that came down to Thomas Aquinas for a few days for a program, and it was just the best setting to do Catholic liberal education. So it's a real treat for those of you that can make it this year to be hosted at Thomas Aquinas College. There you can see a picture of basically what you'll be doing for 4 days, sitting around at the feet of master teachers and really enjoying rich, great discussion. So that is the Academic Retreat for Teachers. Cannot recommend that enough, and especially for those of you anywhere near the West Coast, being that it's regional for you this year, definitely take that opportunity. All right, Mike, why don't you tell us more about the National Conference?
Great. This is our 7th National Conference, and this is very different than the other two. It's a large group. We expect about 250 to 300 educators. And this is, it's a great opportunity for the whole spectrum, from beginners to seasoned educators, to be introduced to the Catholic liberal arts education, to be inspired by many who have done it before. Some of us have been in the business for 25 years, others have just been in it a year or two. And there's a lot of great stories and wisdom that comes from the fellowship of being together for a few days at Catholic U. We also have a terrific opening night speaker this year. Mary Hassan will give us a talk. She recently had a book, I believe it was somewhere in the top of the charts, and it's called Get Out Now. So she has a lot to say about the importance of a sound education for the formation of your children and for the future of our society. We're also blessed to have Father Bronner, the Institute's chaplain, and also the pastor of St. Agatha Academy, which is a small rural parish in Kentucky, in Western Kentucky, that is in many respects the kind of school that shouldn't be doing what they're doing with classical ed, but they are, and they're wildly successful. So it's a rural community, it's a poor community, it's largely Protestant, not Catholic, and the more intentional they've become, the more successful they've become. We're also going to have Rosemary Vanderweel from Our Lady of Lourdes again. And we're really blessed to have Dr. Greg Roper from the University of Dallas come up. He's a really dynamic speaker and a very smart man. And an infectious personality too, so you'll enjoy him. And then we're able to get Dr. Seeley back for a plenary again this year. He hasn't done one in a few years. And in addition to that, we're going to have over 30 breakout sessions throughout the week, as long as some ventures in and around the Washington, D.C. area, including an opportunity to tour the John Paul II Cultural Center and an afternoon trip down to the Folger Shakespeare Library. That's restricted in number, but that'll be a really wonderful little side excursion for those of you that are interested in Shakespeare, teaching it, or just seeing the library. And that's the quick summary. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to that. Did I miss anything essential?
Yes, I can think of one thing. All of these professional development programs, we find that many schools are able to access Title II funding. And we have our parent organization, Chris, maybe you can explain a little bit more about this, but through a separate website, we are able to break down the secular versus faith-based content of these programs reimbursed by your local district, depending on how they read that. And we can give you more information about that. But it's always worth trying to seek federal funding, the Title II funding for any of these professional development programs.
Yeah, and I'll just say on that point, jmeducation.org. Like Beth said, if you go to that website, all of our programs are listed, and then, like she said, they have the secular versus religious breakdown. Most local title funding representatives that you'll need to, submit details to in order to get funded. We find that the JM site is a little more friendly in case they're a little leery about the Institute for Catholic Liberal Education. So it's all the information is there. If you want to go through the JM Education site, we found that a lot of schools have success that way getting funded. It's a good point, Beth.
Some schools are able to bring almost their entire faculty to the national conference based on these funds. So it really depends on your local gatekeeper.
And the only other thing I thought to mention, just so y'all are aware, kind of a neat treat at this year's national conference, and what made me think of it was looking at Thomas Aquinas College, that beautiful campus. The designer and architect of that beautiful chapel they have on campus, which is, as you saw, very classical, Duncan Stroik, who is known throughout the world for being a a top religious and classical architect. He will be at our conference and offering a breakout session on classical architecture in education. So that'll be a real treat to have him on board as well. Any questions about any of our summer programs for those of you that are considering what you might want to send certain teachers to, or what to prioritize, or if you want to know any more details, feel free to speak up.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
Do you have an idea of what the breakout sessions will be like? Will they be like the ones last year?
I will let Beth speak to that.
Yes, this was the first year actually that we opened it up and invited people to submit proposals, and we really got a number of very creative proposals. So we are trying to retain, there's always a tension. Often when teachers are brand new to this, they come to the conference and they really want just how-to sessions. And we always want to keep a balance. So about a third, we aim for this, about a third of the breakouts might be more practical, hands-on, how-to kind of things. Another third might be to enrich the content. Let's say, for those who don't know a lot about the medieval world, to have sessions, we're going to repeat Dr. Seeley's talk last year on the medieval world, what we need to know, no matter what age level we're teaching at. And then there's another portion that's really just kind of inspirational. So we have a few different things. We have a few 4 or 5 scholarly talks just to get us thinking. That's sort of in a separate session at the end. We're going to have 4 different breakout sessions rather than 3 this time. Maybe slightly fewer, because often people complain that there's so many good ones to choose from. It's really hard. What we try to do, and what we're usually successful at, is that we try to record every one of them. And for those who come to the conference, you're able to access at least the recording of those you've missed afterward. So it's a mix of those things. Do you have any special interest? Was that Janice asking that question? Do you have any special particular interest?
Well, I really enjoyed it last year, but yes, I had a couple of teachers who wanted more, like you said, practical.
Yeah.
How to. So, and I'm bringing a teacher this year, so it's good to know. But I really enjoyed it last year, how it was as well.
So it's always, especially for those who are new, they just want to come and say, just tell me what to do. Give me some confidence here. And we completely understand that. But we don't want to entirely do it, because what we found is that to a certain extent, it's really healthy to struggle with this a little bit. Because
I totally agree. I tell that to people and they don't believe me, but it's nice to hear it from somebody else. It's true.
Yeah. Think about it this way. It's a reflection of the spiritual life. In fact, it's preparation for the spiritual life. You're not going to get everything immediately, and our students won't get everything immediately. So it's different than handing a teacher a manual and saying, just do this page by page, unit by unit. We want to give them a little bit of a runway, and we want to give them some practical tools that they can apply in different ways. But we really do want them to try to use that as a template and go beyond that. So we deliberately don't make the national conference a very hands-on, or at least not entirely hands-on. For that, it's more the spirit and craft of teaching, or our 2-day workshop at schools where we come to schools. That's a little bit more hands-on. The spirit and craft is sort of the expanded version of the 2-day workshop. We have more or less a curriculum with pedagogical principles that we like to work through. We can do a very quick version of that in a 2-day workshop. The spirit and craft is much more hands-on, step by step. But so that's one thing. The conference, the couple advantages to the conference are that you really are drawing on the expertise of so many different educators. Right. You're developing networks. You're finding other second grade teachers around the country who you can contact later on when you're stumped on how to teach the Roman year. You're getting a bigger picture, and you're also seeing that you're part of this incredible renewal that's going on around the country. Yeah. So it often inspires people and gets them fired up to feel like they're really doing something in the church. Yeah. So they're all different programs designed for different reasons.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
Sure. And in fact, you're giving a wonderful breakout where I'm excited to hear your breakout. I think it's the theology of history, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it looks really good, Janice. We're looking forward to that one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just highlight Beth's point about the networking from the perspective of like a new teacher who's desiring the practical. It's one thing to soak up as much as you can in 4 or 5 days on practical yourself. And I just can't highlight enough the feedback that we get when you get to meet those other teachers. You may not get all the practical there in those 4 days, but the opportunity to call on half a dozen other third grade teachers that you met and networked with at that conference and ask them questions throughout the year, to me, is far more valuable than anything you could soak up on the practical level. You're just by yourself in just a few days. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
can't highlight that enough. All right, any other questions about any of the summer programs?
I have a question,
Yes.
Jonathan. What do you guys think, or would you make any recommendation or have any history of? We have some people that we're assembling within our board that are really well versed in classical education, and others that aren't, but are amazing people and great partners for that. What do you guys think about sending board members to the conference? Is that the right venue? I would think that versus the Spirit of Craft or the Retreat for Teachers, and I know that there's like the School Leaders Forum later on in the fall time too, but just to kind of inculcate that excitement, I guess, and like get a idea for the, I guess, movement and that kind of thing.
For that, I would definitely say the national conference. For a board member to see that this is really something happening in the church, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of excitement. There's a number of clergy who often come, they're pastors, and they're really taking their responsibility seriously to pass on the faith, and they're revamping their schools. And so I think my colleagues, do you agree that the national conference is the place to do that?
Yep.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. I might follow it up if the funds are there to encourage them to go to a school leaders forum at some point. They might not need as much hands-on experience as a school leader would or a teacher, but you also get to see often what the school leaders forum does for people is to show them that, oh, okay, this is doable. It's possible. It releases a lot of anxiety from those who are asked to do this. These are normal teachers, normal school, normal kids. It's not impossible to do.
The other thing I would mention too is one of the mediums we've been using more this year than ever before for the first time is webinars. And so we can offer like an introductory webinar. In fact, actually, before I would even say that, I would remind everyone of Beth's excellent webinar that she delivered for NCEA on their webinar platform, which is available free to anyone at any time. I would definitely send people that way. But if you were interested in or would find it beneficial, like a customized webinar that we could do live for your board to kind of introduce folks who are not familiar with it to the vision, that's an option as well. So
awesome, thanks.
Any other questions about the summer programs? Okay. So we have just a few other things on the agenda. Number one, I'm disappointed that Julian Malcolm, I'm sure he'll listen to the recording. Knowing Julian, he must have had a previous engagement, but he brought up the great idea earlier to discuss more the opportunities that our member schools might have for regional networking. And I'll just sound out. I'd love some input. We'd love some input, and I'll just start the conversation though by talking about just here in my local context. I'm in Long Beach, California. My daughter started TK at a school that's transitioning for the first time this year, Holy Innocents. For those of you that saw our case studies report, Holy Innocents was featured in there. We're thrilled with the experience so far, just from the perspective of parents, but it's neat for me with my work at the Institute to be here at a school day to day as well. But we are, our situation is such that the school I mentioned earlier, St. Lawrence Martyr in Redondo Beach, is just about a half an hour up the road. They are also transitioning toward Catholic liberal education. There is St. Monica's Academy and St. Augustine Academy, both in the Southern California area. One's about an hour away, one's about 2 hours away, who have been at it for decades. They were independent, parent founded Catholic classical schools of 20 plus years. And then there's a school that's transitioning in Alhambra. So anyway, point being, and also down in San Marcos with St. Joseph Academy. But point being, we're starting to explore the principal here, Mrs. Cruz. She was just on the phone the other day with, a couple of the other principals in the area about possibilities for shared professional development this summer. things like that. So we wanted to kind of open up that conversation and get ideas from you on how we might help in that regard. A lot of it, I think you schools, as long as you know where each other is located, can do a lot of it on your own. But we were just curious if there's a role that you could see the Institute playing in a more explicit way that would assist you in doing that. And if Mike or Beth want to add anything to that or just open up the conversation, we can do that.
We have in the past talked about doing smaller regional conferences, and when we have more bandwidth, we'd like to do that. Maybe, for example, a 2-day conference in a certain location where there's a cluster of schools on, let's say, mimetic instruction, or just target one thing and invite you all. I don't know maybe you can give us some feedback on that, if that might be worthwhile down the road. It's a way for you to share costs too. Someone wanted to host it and invite others. We can think about something like that in the future.
I have go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, you're the one I want to talk to. So there's definitely two memberships. There are those who are transitioning, and then there's those like my husband and myself, he's always in the background, who are parents who grassroots effort, right? And we are just out here pouring the coals to it, hours, just everything we can to get the school off the ground. And it would be so nice to have other founders where we can first and foremost pray for one another, and then secondly bounce ideas off of one another. There's a lot of things we've tried that have not worked, and there are a lot of things that have been hugely successful for us. I'll just rattle off some examples. Like, we have a business owner that sponsors one of our teacher salaries and carries them on their payroll. And then we're currently looking at trying to cap some of the inflation costs by possibly offering teacher housing, where it is buy now, reap the benefits forever. Quality housing, 4 bedrooms, large families, because that's what we kind of envision. And so one of our teachers is actually thinking about that. He actually kind of liked that idea, because we're always up against this enormous task of fundraising. So I would love to have other founders to talk to. And then the other thing that our school recently did was tapped into a very high-end school called the Bedford School in our area, and they take children with learning disabilities, but it's very costly. Our school tends to have a lot of children with learning disabilities land in our laps. And so I have found a wonderful friend in the founder of that school, Betsy Box, who is allowing us to shadow and bring home architecture for the day, how operations can be changed so that every child can succeed. And if it's good enough for a child that has, say, ADHD or other, you name it, then it's good for all the children. But I think there might be room even in some of these conferences where maybe we could pass along just our notes, from this, just a little handout that people could stop and pick up. It doesn't necessarily need to be a full breakout session, but it's the way to share information amongst ourselves, just as an idea. And then I have had another couple contact me from Auburn, Alabama about starting a school. So I would be more than happy to put together a side forum for people interested in this.
That's a great suggestion. I think there's definitely a need for that, Monique. That's a great suggestion. We know those folks in Auburn. So I'm not opposed to doing a breakout session, or, for example, the peer-to-peer lunch on the first day. We can, sometimes we typically just do that for school leaders, but we can also have a separate one for independent school founders. There's absolutely no reason not to do that. So we can do one or more of those things, and I can talk to you about that further, but I think that's a great idea. Okay. Thank you.
I also want to just mention, you mentioned the importance of praying for one another. Andrew Seeley, our Director of Advanced Formation, is working, beginning plans for a prayer confraternity within the school membership. So that will be forthcoming as well. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Monique. We probably should have mentioned that first, that we think very intentionally praying for one another's efforts is really important. So that will be forthcoming as well. Anyone else have any ideas or questions or thoughts on regional networking?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the value proposition of it being regional is twofold. One, you can get there by just driving really quickly, and so it doesn't have to be a big commitment of a couple of days or so. Even I think of specifically groups like the Acton Institute, which to some degree I'm involved with. Well, they'll have Father Chirico that will come and just do a dinner and a talk, and it brings people together, and it's a low barrier to entry that even all of us like young kids can kind of just go out there and sacrifice a night and come back, and that's great. And then the other part of it is having regional content, right? So I'm in California, and there's specific challenges of being a school operating within California, and then if the topic somewhat pertains to developing employment law within California, or some new pronouncement or something on the horizon in terms of education, or even things like what types of opportunities there are for organizations within California, then that compounds to it. That doesn't necessarily have to always be the topic, but I think it just makes it more specific to that regional group, right? Mm-hmm. So those are two things that, again, being new on thing, but I know I've used from other institutes that I've been attracted to for those types of opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Other thoughts and ideas? Okay, well, we'll continue to do whatever we can to promote that, encourage that, assist that, make it easier for you to do that. Obviously, one of the biggest ways right now, we've really updated our Catholic Classical Liberal Arts map on the website. So that's a pretty up-to-date indication of schools all over the country that are moving in this direction. And so that's a great place to start if you don't know already who's nearby. The second thing I wanted to bring up, the idea was kind of planted in my brain a few weeks ago. We gave Mike and I gave a webinar for a group of parents that are interested in founding a Catholic classical school in Omaha, Nebraska. And they've started a website to kind of generate interest. And when I visited the website, I noticed that they had featured there 3 or 4 different embedded YouTube videos of other Catholic classical schools from all over the country of their promotional videos. And they were essentially saying, this is the kind of school we want to create. And it just, I wanted to share that. I think, and having been in school marketing myself, I was a director of admissions for about 6 or 7 years at a high school. I don't think we share resources enough, especially when we're in a niche like this in Catholic liberal education. So I just wanted to share that great idea and encourage you all to share as much as you possibly can with each other. I think because this is still sort of viewed as a niche and understood as a niche, and we're doing something very different from a lot of schools, I think you can share a promotional video from a school, that's halfway across the country, and it actually can do you some good, because they may have explained or, sort of shown what this looks like in real life in a way that you haven't yet or aren't able to due to resources, things like that. So I just thought that was a great idea and wanted to put that out there and encourage that. If anybody has any comments or questions, you can speak up, but mainly just an idea I thought worth sharing. Okay, the next thing there, you see one of the things that we've been promising to get out, and been dragging our feet a little bit, for any of you that are now member schools, official member schools, that want to reflect that on your website or in any other materials, printed materials, things like that. We've got the ICLE member school logo updated. It's a little better quality than we've had in the past, and updated. So this will be available on the member school resources page, where you can download it anytime you need it. So you don't have to get it once and then forget and ask us for it, as sometimes happens. We're going to put it right there on the member school resources page. So you can download it anytime you need it. Other than that, Mike or Beth, anything I haven't covered or that has popped into your head? Otherwise, we will open it up for any general Q&A. And of course, we're always interested, as we are getting this, off the ground in a much more deliberate way than we have in the past, this member school program. Always interested to hear your insight and feedback on what we can be doing that we're not already, what we are doing that we may not realize is super helpful. And so to be sure to continue it, but any feedback you have on the actual program, we'd love to hear it. Otherwise, any general Q&A for us or for each other. That's one of the benefits of getting together quarterly is.
I have two requests.
Yes, please.
If I may ask. Okay, so we have dropped in our beautiful laps. One of the local Catholic churches where my daughter went to preschool is actually closing the preschool. We have invited them to come under us. And simultaneously, we have a gentleman who works in one of the faith formation offices at another local parish. He's currently working on his educational leadership degree, has taken classes on classical, and is highly now interested in what we're doing and may be coming to open our high school. Is there anybody, without me having to go figure this out, because I don't know where to go, that would have a preschool education plan and also a high school education plan that you would be willing to share?
Great question.
Well, the high school, St. Jerome's is putting together a high school plan now. There are a few other high schools that you could get to know, find out what their academic program is, not reinvent the wheel, of course, but use those to sort of guide you in developing the particular program that would serve your own kind of community the best. As far as preschool,
Well, let me ask Danny, because I know I know at one point they were saying Montessori, and then they were saying, well, maybe not, because when a child tries to come in, it doesn't always work well. So one thing that is nice about the little preschools, our kindergartners come into this school from that preschool very well prepared. I'm not sure I would change anything, but for the discriminating classical parent, I've already had one say, well, I wouldn't send my child there because that's not in alignment with, and I'm trying to figure out, is there a classical way to present colors that maybe we're missing? I don't know what I don't know. This is all new territory for me.
at my school, we do a Montessori hybrid, if you will. Our teacher's Montessori trained, so she employs a lot of that. But she's also adapted it to just what serves her best in her talents and the overarching goal. And one of the guiding principles for kindergarten or below is that they have as much hands-on experience with things as possible, and that story and imagination are a huge part of what you're doing. Not workbooks, but lots of drawing, copying, these kinds of things.
Monique, philosophically, Montessori is classical education for younger children because Maria Montessori is based in a very Aristotelian tone. We begin to know through our senses. So they've got sensorial, they've got this, that, and the other thing. It's expensive to start a Montessori school, and you need somebody who's really well trained. And the third thing about it is that Maria Montessori did not patent this, right? So it's very misinterpreted in a lot of places. You'd want to get a Montessori teacher who really understood the Catholic roots, looked at it that way, and understood that it's a very highly ordered, beautiful way of learning that unfolds.
Okay.
For a lot of parents, it's not. Typically, Montessori is at least 5 mornings a week, and that's not everybody's idea of what they want to do with their 3- and 4-year-olds. So that's why some places like St. Augustine adapts it, has a philosophy that is like Montessori, but it's a very natural transition out of Montessori into the, what we see as classical liberal arts education.
Right. Well, and we're still so small. We have lower grammar, K to 1st, upper grammar, 3rd to 5th, all same classroom, right? K to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8. And actually, we kind of like it. I don't know that we were talking about this as part of our crisis we ran into this week. We actually love being small. So maybe we're always going to be a 60 to a 100 student kind of camp. So okay, I'll look at that. And then
Real quick, not that I know much about preschool ages, but and Beth, maybe you can weigh in. Is Catechesis of the Good Shepherd worth mentioning here?
Definitely. Are you familiar with the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, Monique? Can't recommend that enough. That is just the most beautiful place to start.
All right. I've seen it, and that's what I was looking for. Okay. All right.
Other questions or comments? Ideas for us as to how we can serve you better?
For those of you starting the new school, communications, communications, communications. And for everybody else, Danny, you can speak to this, I'm sure. It's like the school's job is to constantly communicate the mission to every constituency, sending out articles, describing little anecdotes from the class. Once you're up and running, you know, sort of the headmaster sending out little stories of the amazing conversation that he popped into in 4th grade the other day, or just to really communicate the qualitative difference rather than so much emphasis on quantitative. Not that your test scores are going to drop or anything, but really emphasizing the qualitative differences, what it's like in these classrooms when these kids are so excited to learn, because that's the universal difference, is that there's a real joy in learning and the kids are excited to learn. And that's the template for lifelong learning. So that's what we're trying to spark in them. And we need to be able to tell that story constantly, whether it's to board members, to prospective parents, to existing parents, to whomever. So be sure to think of that communications piece as really an important part of the mission. And to that end, use everything. We try to put as much as we can on our website. Please feel free to use all of that. Cross-reference, follow the rabbit holes, down the links. There's really a lot out there now that will help you articulate this vision.
I had a quick question. I don't know if it's that quick. Just kind of I'm always trying to compare what I get in prayer with what other people are. How did you come to your topic of freedom for the summer?
I think because it's just the most misunderstood concept in modern secular culture. The difference between the self, freedom to do whatever I want, as opposed to true freedom. I mean, Catholic liberal education, liberal means free, comes from the Latin word that means free. So what is true freedom? We're really only free when we are growing in holiness in the imitation of Christ. So to really understand what freedom is and how it can really only be found in modeling ourselves in imitation of Christ. And that's really the heart, it's the telos, if you will, the goal of what we're doing, is that true freedom, and to really understand what that is, because it's very distinct from what's happening in the modern world.
Yeah, and that decision really grew out of our discussions about renaming the conference as well. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, we used to call the national conference the National Catholic Classical Schools Conference. We have found, and Beth can speak more to this, but we have found lately, the last couple of years or so, that the word classical is getting more and more challenging, and it's serving us in a positive way, less and less actually, because a lot of people, when they hear the word classical, first of all, they might have very different impressions of what it means to be classical. Second of all, they hear it as a niche, because it's not the word Catholic, and so they think, oh, this Catholic school is going classical, and this one's going STEM, and that one's going fine arts. So it's one of many, you know, kind of marketing niches you can choose. And of course, we don't believe that. We believe this is just authentic Catholic education. We wish we didn't have to say liberal or classical or any of that, because at one point, just to say Catholic education meant what we're promoting here, the Church's vision of education. So in our discussions about changing and kind of reframing the title of the conference, the theme kind of grew out of that, because as Beth often says, we don't do this to be classical, we do it to be free in Christ. And so.
But here's where I need to put the shout out to Monique, because it was really in a conversation with Monique that she may have even used that phrase, freedom in Christ, that really stuck with me and had me spinning on it. So thank you, Monique. You need to get credit where credit is due.
Nice. Any other questions?
Yeah, I actually have one more thing I want to just ask. I am trying so hard to really get our archdiocese eyes turned toward this, and I have found if there's even a smidgen in an article that sort of casts a downward look upon the Catholic schools like ours here in the Atlanta Archdiocese, whose mission it is to compete with public schools, it shuts down the conversation. And I'm just wondering if maybe we could take some of the old articles and remove these little, and I can even maybe pull a couple of them and highlight the sentences that I think if they were reworded would uplift. I mean, this thing sells itself. It's so beautiful. I mean, we have 100% re-enrollment this year. 100% of our families are coming back. And they're coming back because of exactly what Elizabeth just said. The kids love it. I have little children come to me crying over the summer when they see me and say, can't you just open the school back? And, they want to come over the summer. And one little boy cried every day because he wanted to come on Saturday. He cried in the entire first quarter. So, it's a good problem to have that the kids love it so much. But in trying to work with Dr. Starkovic, I want to point out just all the beautiful things, but there's a point when it shuts down the conversation, when there's a comment in there that and there's truth in what's being said, right? I mean, there's truth in what's being said. But is there a way we could maybe catch more flies with a little more honey, as we say here?
So are you thinking, for example, of the beginning of the case studies report or something like that? So there are places where we've been critical of the status quo.
Yes.
What we try to do is thread this needle. I'll just tell you where we are with this. What we try to do is thread this needle by saying the secular progressive model, not directly attacking Catholic schools that use it, but basically saying we want to be careful, we want to be aware of what this is based in. So I don't know if you got to see the webinar that we did for NCEA. Really tried hard there to say, this is not healthy, this is really based in a different philosophy, and we just want to be aware that Catholic teachers have done an amazing job, even within a flawed system, to try to pass on the faith and create a joyful community, but we can take it so much further. So we've gone back and forth on this, quite honestly, Monique, because unless you can sort of draw the differences out and really clearly say this is oriented toward quantitative, fragmented secular philosophy versus something else, people tend to say, oh yeah, we do that. Oh yeah, we do that. And it's really urgent that this changes because Catholic schools are closing left and right, right? And so to some extent, we have to speak the truth a little more boldly. And yes, it does put some of them on the defensive. We're careful to try to say we don't want to imitate what the public schools are doing, but we also understand that this is a threat to people who have devoted their lives to Catholic education and they haven't been given any other model to follow. It's not really their fault. All
right.
For the last 50 years has been fundamentally secular. So we try to build that bridge rather than attack them, but we do have to attack the roots of the problem in terms of what's wrong with the secular model. So it's always a challenge to walk that fine line.
Yeah, I totally agree and I totally understand. I just, I'm just trying to, put these videos and we freely share the videos and the articles joyfully. But I do find that it is shutting down some of the conversation, and it's not until like the gentleman who may come for our high school, he's actually currently on the board of one of those schools. So I'm just hopeful that God has done an amazing cross-pollination through this soul that, it'll bring fruit.
And feel free to send me, Monique, separately, any particular area that you think really caused a problem, just so I know when we're using that, because I write a lot of it. So just so that I'm aware of where the triggers really are.
Okay.
Feel free to share that with me.
Yeah, no, everything.
That's right. It's all the combative stuff, Monique.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's spoken in truth, right? There's truth. But I also know you know, like when I'm trying to evangelize and bring a soul into the Catholic Church, it starts with building up and encouraging and pointing out what's going well and what's going right. So, you know, when I look across the 20, 30 miles up the road to Our Lady of Victory, oh my gosh, there are live stations of the cross that they do every Easter with the students. Incredibly beautiful. Incredibly beautiful. So it's not like they're complete failures in our area, but they're failing the parents because all the parents, and it is very true, the parents don't see much difference between sending their children there or to public school because it's all the same.
That's right.
So
What we try to say is look at what you're doing with point out these beautiful things they're doing with the faith. What we're trying to say is we haven't realized how much further we can take it. We can take that you're doing. You're teaching the faith beautifully. The liturgy is beautiful. You're involving children in service, but we can take this even further, all the way through the curriculum and the pedagogy. So let's just invite you to see how you can take it further. That seems
right. Well, I'm on a mission, as you can tell, here in Atlanta, and I think it'll come. You know, we're all kind of praying hard for our new Archbishop. As you know, ours is going to DC. So we're praying for that new Archbishop that he'll love classical education and maybe be a cheerleader for it. So, and Dr. Starkovic and I had a beautiful meeting in January. I prepared for her a full binder that was completely transparent, included the education plan we adopted from St. Jerome's. Thank you, Danny. And we weren't quite ready to ask for a Catholic school title. We're kind of hung up in the drama with advanced ed right now and all of their little internal crises they're going through. So that's the last piece for our site visit from the Archdiocese, and then they're going to hopefully bestow upon us the Catholic school title. But we got to the end of the meeting and she reached across the table. She goes, "Please let me have this. Let us get started." And so that was positive. We had a great meeting. She asked a lot of hard questions. It's the first time I've ever met her face to face. It was my third ask if I could come meet her. And third time was a charm. So we'll see. So please keep her in prayer. I think these are the kind of prayer requests that I would love a community that understands the depth and the breadth of the request. You know, it is very scary for someone like her. She knows what she knows. She's been trained in what she's been trained in. It probably feels like a threat to her and her livelihood. And we need to be mindful that we're not trying to displace people. We're trying to bring about a conversion of hearts and minds toward this. And, you know, that we respect her. We respect what she's done for our schools and has been trying to do. But, you know, it's time, as we see our schools continually decline, and maybe the fruit is just ripe for the plucking. It's just time to try this. But anyway, sorry.
No, it's exactly right.
It really matches. Go ahead, Beth.
Just last comment is just that what we see is you don't need some classical guru to come in and do this, right? And what we see is often some of the most successful people are at this are long-term Catholic teachers who know what a 7-year-old is or know what a 12-year-old is and are excited to learn this and are open to it. It really just takes openness. And more often than not, I mean, most often, really, what we hear is this feels like a fulfillment of my vocation to Catholic education. This feels natural. This feels like I'm taking it where it needed to go. And there's a real joy in that. So we just try to paint that picture for them as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would just say too, it really matches our experience lately with, you know, dealing with educators, superintendents, folks like you said. I mean, the more degrees they have in education, the more defensive they get, because you're exactly right. It calls a lot of their livelihood into question. But the way we look at it is they were robbed. I mean, you know, culpability requires knowledge, and they don't know what they don't know. And so that's the way we look at it. Look at how dedicated all these Catholic school teachers all over the country, and doing the best they can with a philosophy of education that just doesn't fit the human person. So we try to frame it that way and encourage, like you said, and build up. And I think we've found a lot of success that way. So thanks for pointing that out. It's important. Any other questions, comments, last minute thoughts?
Well, you said something earlier in terms of like sharing marketing resources that had me think is, you know, right now we're looking for someone that can help us generate marketing materials. And you can always, find someone that's not within the space, but to the extent that someone is within the industry, and they get, you just kind of, it's a little bit more efficient, to the extent that they understand and they understand where you're going. And marketing is one of those areas, but like, for example, we're using a firm that was specifically launched to help Catholic schools with their business operations. And it's called St. Joseph's Financial Services. And, like for us to be able to kind of share that resource with people, I don't know if you ever envision putting up like a preferred vendors or a recommended vendors kind of thing. But, so, I'd be happy to share that with people, and then I would look for something, things like marketing wise or other types of service, even legal services, drafting bylaws, which are, can be somewhat boilerplate and then with a little bit of fine tuning for the area. If there's someone out there that can do that pretty legibly in a quick way, I think it would just behoove the whole industry.
Great.
That's a great idea. We'll have to take that, see how we could do it, because we couldn't endorse those we haven't looked at, but we can certainly pass along names of those who have found success. Yeah, that seems, and just in terms of marketing, Chris, is this where we should give a shout out to New Eve, our own marketing team?
Yeah.
Great young Catholic guys, founded this media company. They do our website. They film our conference. They're affordable. They're really dedicated.
Yeah.
Like-minded.
Graduates of John Paul the Great University down in Escondido, California, just inland of San Diego. Which
what
was
are their, let me know them.
What's that?
What are their names? Because I went there.
Oh, Paul Massell and Jacob. What's Jacob's last name? Spence. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Those guys, yeah.
I've been talking to them in a few years, so I guess.
Well, there you go. Oh yeah, definitely. Reach out to those guys for sure. They've been huge. And just for those that aren't aware, where I was going with that is John Paul the Great University is one of these newer, very faithful Catholic colleges and universities. They were founded specifically to offer, well, you guys, you went there, you could probably talk better about it than I can, but to offer degrees in media specifically. And so it's great to see two early graduates of that university come out and found a Catholic media company that, they work with all sorts of organizations, but really their drive, their mission is to help Catholic organizations with their marketing endeavors. So. Yeah, they do great work.
You can also speak with Chris as a member school. You can use some of the things on our website, and you can always link to things from our website rather than reinventing the wheel. Some people will put portions of our promotional video in their video, and as long as it's, credited, that works.
Great, thanks.
Anything else? All right. Well, I just want to thank you all once again for joining us. Mike did not ditch us, but he is not only the president of the Institute, but he's also a Latin teacher. So he texted me that he had to run off and teach Latin. So that's why he isn't here to say goodbye. But yeah, thank you. Please keep sending us ideas, questions, comments. We really are here to serve you. We always talk about the fact that we're so blessed to be involved in this work, and that the real heroes are all of you educators out in the trenches making it happen. We're just happy to be this organization that can bring everybody together and hopefully provide some valuable resources and really just help you all help each other. I think we do more of that than anything else. So thank you for all the great work that you're doing. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you at one of those 3 summer programs very soon. Thanks a lot, and God bless.
Thanks very much. God bless everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.